but throwing it to more like a question to you, because you've been really successful as a coach and as a teacher, as a parent too, for the last 20 whatever years. So what are like some of the things that you think have been really important for you to be successful almost regardless of the group? Like, doesn't matter what the group is. Like, what are some of the common threads that you've noticed? Like, this works, this doesn't. This works, this doesn't, kind of thing.
Yeah, I wrote a few things down. Okay, so I'm not just totally winging it here. Okay, so the number one thing, well, no, not number one. I did no particular order. Is why I've had success and probably continue to is because number one, for myself, I care about what I'm doing. I care about doing an excellent job. I actually really care about that. And that might sound like, well, of course you do. No, not really. Some people don't care. They just do the job or they do part of a job, right? So I get very I take it very personal that I do a very good job. One of my quotes that I use a lot of the times is that I said to myself, if you don't feel that you can do this anywhere in the world and be the best at it, then you shouldn't go out and make money at it, right? So that I take a lot of pride in that. I will do an excellent job. I cared about doing an excellent job. So if and correct me if I'm wrong. When someone's in a position to like a coach or whatever, if they show that they are ambiguous. I love my huge words. Come on, man. About their commitment, or they show like they're coming to work and it's like whatever happens happens, or unprepared for a practice or a game, then yeah, that's what you're going to get with your kids. If you come in and you're always dialed in, and it shows like you care about all the details, and that rises all ships, right? So I think that's not number one, but I think it's very important. Um, the second thing about that is I cared about doing an excellent job. So if you think about it as a coach, okay, like your systems are good, this is good, this is good, the practices are good, okay, but what else should you care about? Is you should care about some sort of result. And that's one thing that I took great pride in, is I cared about making the players better. So for me, it wasn't about running drills, because you can running drills or making it look good, because that's fine, but are you getting results? But what kind of results are you getting? So if I'm coaching a team, your results are, to me, should be trying to win, and that should be a goal, no matter how poor your team is or how good it is. Should be competing at the highest level. Should be making the players individually better as best, as much as you can. And it's like all those things, like caring about making your players better, right? So if your players are better, like and what does that mean? Well, are they better hockey players? Well, that's what your job is, so that's what you should be doing. Um, are they better people? Well, that's not necessarily your job, but I think if you care, that's going to be part of it. So I think that's really important. And it's like if you're a school teacher, it's the same thing, right? If you come in and you show that you care about getting results, then what happens? Then when some kid comes in and says, I didn't get my homework done, it's not like, oh well, okay, you get an F. It's like, come here for a second, and you can have just a normal conversation and show like maybe you're disappointed. Which disappointment shows like genuine though. Disappointment shows that you actually cared, or you see something in this person that they didn't see in themselves. And those are all little things about caring that make a big difference. So when someone cares about you and someone sees potential in you and someone wants you to do well and someone says you can maybe be here because you see yourself here, but I think you can be here, and it's genuine, and there's a support group, or the environment's good, then that you get someone to believe in themselves. That's making people better, right? So I think that was one of my things. Um, Really, 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 really important is what were your goals? Right? What do you?
Like as the coach,
Yeah,
yeah,
as the
or
teacher, as
teacher.
the coach, as mom and dad, right? Right. Yeah, like so, if my son said, or my daughter said, I'm going to go in social work or I want to be a psychologist. It's like, okay, why? Like, what do you really want to do? Where do you want to end up? Because maybe that's not the right path. Maybe it is, right? But knowing their goals so you can help, right? So like, this could sound weird from a skills coach, but what are your goals? Because if and I always say this, like if you're coaching a team, like if you come to junior, say you play in the OHL or college, and you say I just want to have a good junior career. Okay, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But as a coach, it's like, what where where can I help you now? Like what kind of buttons can I press to get you to a higher level? Right? So, anyways, my point is to know what is your goal. So, pretty much every player. So, like, I do that all the time in camps. It's like, who would like to play college, NHL, whatever, right? Like, I want to know your goals. And as I get to know them a little bit more, where do you want to go? So, because it makes a big difference, right? If a kid says, I want to be a top pick in the OHL, like I want to be, I want to go high enough to play as a 16, 17-year-old. Well, there's a little bit of a time period that we have to maybe um, look at and say, and I have to be honest now, right? I got to say, okay, you're got a ways to go here. You're gonna have to really work hard to say, okay, this makes sense to you, to me. Someone says, I want to go and get a D1 scholarship and then play in the NHL or whatever. It's like, okay, so we got a different time frame. We got different, I got to know he balances school. There's different values and stuff like that. So knowing their goals helps, and it helps me as a coach with my commitment to them. Because someone says, I just and you know what, this I was going to say just, I didn't mean just. So I used to have times when I had some camps earlier on when I would go, why are you guys paying to come out for lessons or to this group? Like, you don't have a chance. And then I said, I have to find a purpose because they're coming anyways. I have to find a purpose to teach them. And that's where it was important to me to find out where I was. And some kids were like, I just want to stay on the AAA team. I want to make the AAA team. It's a goal, right? It's not as a big the biggest task ever. It's like, okay, we have to a short period of time, got to do so many things. Do this in your game, do this in your game, do this in your game, and that should help you, right? So like knowing their goals helps me help you. So
Yeah.
I think that's huge.
Yeah, and just a highlight. I want to stretch that out too. If you're not a hockey coach, because just one example for me, I don't even know if everyone knows the things that I do in a day, but just as one example, I have on Mondays I actually do a classroom thing where I teach kids about nutrition concepts or training or recovery or whatever. But right now we're doing like a unit, I guess, on nutrition. So it's the classroom setting, and to your exact point, it's I need to have a goal of what I'm trying to do. So if you're a teacher and you listen to this, like have you actually sat and decided, okay, what is my goal this year for my grade 6 class or my grade 12s or whatever the group is that you're teaching? So for me, I do that with the training stuff, and maybe it seems a little bit more tangible because you're training for a specific sport and getting a result might be easier. But for me, with the nutrition thing, it's like, okay, what's my goal? This is the topic I'm teaching. What's my goal for this? And what I wanted to do is give the kids some actual things they can take into their nutrition protocols at home. Like, how do I identify protein? How do I identify this? How can I make sure I'm actually making strides to be better with how I eat food? So that was my goal. I was like, I want practical strategies for them where they can leave this class, and if someone says, what did you learn today? They could say something. It's not nothing. And I think it seems obvious, right? Like you have to have a goal as a teacher, or you have to have a goal as a coach. But
Or you have to know what their goal is.
or either or. But I really think that's something that is overlooked because it's almost taken for granted. It's like you think, yeah, okay, like the kids want to do well in this class so they get their grade so they can move on. And it's like, how do you know that's the goal? You don't know. What if you're dealing with a kid that doesn't like school? They might have a different goal. So that's a really important thing. I just want to highlight that because even if you're not a coach, if you're a teacher of some sort, if you're a parent, even with your kids, like what's your goal with your kids? Like those are things that need to be a discussion. You actually have to have that in your
Well,
mind.
so funny you say that because my wife, some people would say we want all our kids to be doctors or whatever, and that's fine. But my wife was her goal with all three kids was to have good human beings that were respectful, that you could take out in public,
Yeah, beautiful.
and that whether they were married or not, boy or girl, be self-sufficient and they weren't dependent on someone else.
Great.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah. And it might sound like it's low-bearing fruit, low-hanging fruit, but not really.
No, it's not.
So we look at, Charlie's still a kid yet, but Avery's a nurse. So no matter what happens in her life, she's able to support herself in a lot of different ways, right? And Carter's like can fix anything, and he's a farm guy. He's a heavy mechanic guy. And he works his ass off, and so it's good. You can do things, and they're both smart.
Yeah.
And we got Charlie. He's a hockey player.
Yeah. But that's what I wanted to point out about that because that's a really good one. I think people can take that for granted. The having an actual goal that you've thought out and you've whether you've verbalized it to someone or wrote it down or something specific that you've actually thought through, I do think that that's something that not a lot of people actually take the time to do. They have a vague idea of something, but they don't get it down to something specific. And it's really hard because when you actually sit and try to figure out what the goal is, it might not be the vague thing that you thought. You might actually write it down and say, oh, that's actually not what I want. I want this, or I feel like this is more the right way, or whatever. So that's a really important step, you know?